Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. This is Daybreak. In case you're just joining us, we are just about to get into a very important conversation looking at the status of a drought in the country. But before we engage our guests in studio this morning to make sense of what is happening, let's look at the numbers and just get to find out, how are we in terms of the affected counties and the affected people when it comes to matters drought.
Okay, and Saf, thank you. Drought affecting 23 counties according to this report by the National Drought and Management Authority, and we have a representative in the studio with us. 10 counties are in the alarm phase, and let's look at the other details as provided for by the agency.
All right, if you look at how this has affected people, at least 4.35 million people are in dire need of food, are to be in dire need of food by December. Of course, the number, like we told you earlier, is expected to rise from what we are recording right now, considering the predicted failed rain season in October, December. If you look at the list of counties that are in the alarm phase, they are Laikipia County, Tana River County, Tharaka Nithi County, Isiolo, and Mandera County.
And those are some of the counties that are in the alarm phase. And also there are other counties including Garissa, Turkana, Wajir, Samburu and Marsabit. And this is according to the National Drought and Management Authority, NDMA, which issued a statement on the 16th of September, about 5 days ago, as to the ravaging drought in many parts of the country.
Of course, in the 2021-2022 interventions there, we see that about 4 billion shillings was spent by the government for the Hunger Safety Net program. Another 3.45 billion shillings was spent on emergency relief. Another 950 million shillings was set aside for the livestock offtake program. This is in what is contained in the last financial year for 2021-2022.
And more than 440 million Kenya shillings for water response activities by the government, and 3.23 billion Kenya shillings for Inua Jamii program, and more than 2 billion Kenya shillings by the Ministry of Education for the school feeding program to keep at least learners in school because of the scarcity and the food insecurity caused by the ongoing drought in the country. And those are some of the numbers that we had from the National Drought and Management Authority. We have a representative in the studio with us. Amos Nyakeo is the Deputy Director, Drought Continence and Response with the National Drought and Management Authority, NDMA. Good morning, Amos, again. Esther Moirori is the Programs Officer, Climate Change Adaptation with the Kenya Red Cross Society. Esther, good morning. Sam Ombeki is joining us virtually here on the broadcast this morning. He is the Senior Programs Manager, Care Kenya, and to take his account of what's happening in the country. Amos, may I begin with you? And we have seen the numbers there, as you have stated in your 16 September statement. But what is the easy, immediate fix out of this problem?
In a drought, the immediate actions are actions to cushion the exposed population from the ravages of the drought. And primarily, this involves interventions that enable them to put food on the table through food distribution, relief food distribution, and of course cash transfers that enable them to access food by purchasing. And of course there is also the issue around accessing water, because really the biggest challenge about drought is about access to water, and the consequences around that revolve around difficulties on how households are able to access food, especially the most vulnerable, and then how the livestock, which is the mainstay of the economies in most of these ASAL counties, the access to livestock forage also becomes an issue. Yeah.
All right, Esther, just, and of course, Amos, we'll get to talk more about these interventions and how sustainable they are going forward. But Esther, you have been part and parcel of a team that has been interacting with the affected people on the ground. Just paint a picture for us. How bad is it? We are being told that 10 counties have now joined the red zone. Another 10 are in the alert phase. We have just about 3 who are categorized under the normal drought phase. Tell us a bit about how bad the situation is. What are we looking at?
Thank you for that question. I think what we are looking at is deteriorating capacity of the communities affected by the drought to be able to bounce back to where they were. And just to put this into perspective, we are in a situation whereby the same communities have been faced by 4 consecutive failed rainfall seasons since the October-November rains of 2020. And at the same time, before then, we had desert locust in this country, and most of these counties now affected by drought were also affected by pest infestation, desert locust infestation. And at the same time, we had COVID-19 crisis. And also we have witnessed what is happening within the global economic crisis, and that also has some effects on the food pricing at the household level. So we are seeing very declining capacity of the communities to provide food at the household level. And we are seeing a lot of malnutrition cases rising. We are talking about 942,000 children under the age of 5. We are looking at around 134,000 lactating and pregnant women in this country. And looking at the coming season, where we usually expect the short rains, October, November, December, again, the projections show that we are going to have depressed rainfall. So we are looking at a situation whereby the affected counties, if we don't have life-saving immediate interventions, like providing them with food, food aid, cash transfer programs so that they can continue meeting their basic needs, then we are seeing, we are likely to see that situation deteriorating further. Mm-hmm. And again, I think from, again, the community perspective, when we look at the drought risk, there are also cascading risks that we may not be able to highlight. For example, whenever we have shortage of water or we have floods, we often have disease outbreaks, both for human and for livestock. And this also affects the ability of the household level to be productive member of the society and to look for resources to continue supporting their families. We are seeing the reduction of water levels, having women and girls working more than 2 hours to look for water. We are looking at increased migration of animals and people to look for green pastures. We are looking at a situation where there's likely increase of conflict between communities because of the scarcity of resources. We're also seeing more increased cases of human to wildlife conflict because they're using the same resources. Okay. So yeah, as we have mentioned, the situation is really bad at the household level, particularly for those counties that have been affected, and the projections show that we need to really support them at this particular moment.
Thank you. Let's now get the account of Sam Mbeki, who is the Senior Programs Officer with Care Kenya. Sam, what we have are 23 counties. This is half of the country, 20 in a situation that is worse, according to the report by NDMA. In terms of what you are rolling out and the increasing cases of the counties that are affected by the drought severely, I mean, does it not stretch your capacity in reaching out to the affected people?
Thank you. My internet looks a bit unstable, but I hope I'm on there. Let me come from the background. CARE is currently, before I come to the drought, effects of drought, CARE is working with other partners in northern Kenya. Actually, we are doing a resilient building program, which is called Rapid Plus. This is sponsored or funded by the Swiss government through the Swiss Development Corporation. We are in 5 counties. We are in Turkana, which is under CRS, the Catholic Relief Services, and the Isiolo as well. Then Marsabit is under the Food for the Hungry, Kenya. Then we have Wachia, which is under World Vision, and Care Kenya is in Garissa. Therefore, our intention is to build the resilience for those communities through a strong partnership, which brings together private sector, the county government, the donors, the community. This program does not look at people as beneficiaries.
Okay, and we seem to be experiencing technical glitch there. We'll be having some back as soon as we restore the communication line. Yes, sir.
All right, Amos, just to come back to you on the status of drought in the country, 10 counties are currently in the alarm phase. I just want to understand from you, what are your biggest concerns if you look at the current situation on the ground? She has cited issues to do with malnutrition and, chances of disease outbreak courtesy of the inadequacy of water in these areas. But for you, even as an authority, what are some of the concerns that you have?
Thank you. Largely, drought affects multiple sectors. And these sectors are about 6 or 7. The first one, of course, is about the social safety net sector. And that is about access to food, access to capacity to afford basic needs for households. And then, of course, there is the agriculture sector, which is impacted. You lose crops, you lose potential production, which ordinarily would go to add to household food security and food access. And then you have livestock affected, production is affected. That has ramifications. You can't access food, cases of malnutrition because of inability to access milk and so on starts being felt. Water is affected because drought is basically about lack of water. If it doesn't rain, then you don't have recharge, you don't have water in the water sources. And during a drought, then it is difficult for households to access water for their own domestic use and even for their livestock and for crops where irrigation is done. The other sector affected is, of course, health and nutrition. In this case, we see malnutrition becoming a big issue. Already, my colleague here has mentioned the numbers, close to 1 million children faced with acute malnutrition, close to 140,000 women, pregnant and lactating women, faced with acute malnutrition in need of treatment. And then there are comorbidities that associate with malnutrition. Besides that, there are also diseases that you would associate with the droughts, diseases that you relate with dust, diseases that you relate with hygiene issues, because challenged access to water translates into a limited capacity to address hygiene issues.
Okay.
And then there is also issues around peace and security. Because of competition for survival resources, you will find that communities will tend to migrate to fallback areas. And as they migrate, they are either traversing community lands that belong to others, or they force themselves into other communities' territories, and that has a way of sparking conflicts. And we've seen conflict flare-ups in those counties. So broadly, those are the areas that are of concern, which require immediate attention as we go forward. And I would want to point out that as we are right now, we are talking about having faced 4 failed seasons. We are looking at a 5th season.
Okay.
That is more or less unprecedented in recent memory. Okay. Because the drought that was comparable to what we are having was experienced in 1984. So it means we have a big problem ahead of us when we look at how the outlook is. And then couple that with the fact that ordinarily January to March, you don't expect rains. Okay. So you have a failed short rain season that we are looking at, and then it will be followed by another 3 months or so of no rains. Okay. So we have a long period to deal with the impacts of drought.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Just to stay on that issue, because you've talked about, is it 1984 that you've compared that what we are going through right now is almost similar to what we went through in 1984? A story that has been, published there on page 12 of the Daily Nation that has, quoted what your authority gave in terms of the numbers and the counties affected there. I'm looking at the counties that are listed as ones farms that are experiencing severe vegetation deficit. These are 12 counties, including Mandera, Wajir, Garissa, Kajiado, Laikipia, Embu, Kitui, Meru, Kilifi, Kwale, Taita Taveta, and Tana River. But it's talking more about what you've just talked about. We are going into the 5th season of, failed rainfall. This is not the first time the country is facing this issue of perennial drought. Experts are saying we started going through this as early as 1928. We have gone through at least 15 cycles of drought. Why don't we seem to be making any progress towards the interventions that we are coming with as a country?
Well, it depends on how you look at it, but truth be told, in 2009, 2011, we had a drought. And according to a lot of people and a lot of assessments, it was like the worst drought impact that we ever faced. We saw pictures of livestock dying all over. Compare that with what we are facing now. The livestock mortalities are much lower than we have. The impacts on household food access, the impacts on access to water in 2009, 2011 were much severer than we are facing now. What happened in between? I think what changed is the shift, the paradigm shift from reactive to more or less proactive approaches to drought risk management. And this has enabled action to be taken rather early in terms of responding to drought. And you would appreciate that in the counties, there are those counties that immediately you slide into alert, then the county governments are able to swing into action.
Okay.
You see them committing resources for drought response, delivering water by vehicles to communities. We've seen diverse stakeholders coordinated in a manner that they are able to initiate interventions that enable address some of the worst possible impacts. And that has kept the kind of outcomes more acceptable for the time being.
Okay.
But then we want to say that what happened in that change of approach from reactive drought response to proactive drought response is the institutional developments. NDMA was established by law, and it is responsibility or mandate is to provide leadership and coordination of diverse stakeholders in drought risk management.
Okay, thank you.
And then besides that, there is the coordination structure that is existing from national to county levels, which has helped to put together efforts by diverse stakeholders in a manner that avoids duplications and wastage. Okay. In the past, you would find so many stakeholders flooding to a single geographical area, while there would be more other areas that would be deserving for interventions.
Thank you.
So that has been addressed by the coordination arrangements that we have.
Let's now get the account of the Garissa County Governor, Nadhif Jama, joining us from Garissa County. Ibra, do we have him? Yes, there we go. And good morning. Greetings to you, Excellency. Thanks for joining us. Your county is among the counties in the alarm phase, as per the report issued by NDMA. What are you doing in coordination or collaboration with the national government to alleviate the severity and the impact of the drought in Garissa County, affecting thousands? Okay, Governor, I'll come up again. Good morning, Governor. Are you getting? Okay, we'll be getting back to the Governor as soon as we establish the communication line, and we apologize for that technical glitch that we have experienced here on the broadcast. All right, of course, we will continue with this conversation in just a bit as we take a break. Remember, in studio, we're engaging Amos Nyakeyo, the Deputy Director, Drought Continence and Response at the National Drought Management Authority, and Esther Mwiruri, Programs Officer, Climate Change Adaptation at the Kenya Red Cross Society. We also have on Zoom Sam Ombeki, Senior Program Manager, Care Kenya, and
also we are trying to link up with the governor of Garissa County, Nadif Jama. When we come back from the break, we pick up this conversation talking about the ongoing drought in the country. Going forward, what sustainable solutions do we need as a country? Do stay with us. This is Daybreak.